you mentioned Craig Berube. Is he telling them to make incomplete passes? Is he telling them not to dump and not chase? Like, I don't understand. This team does not want to play Berube hockey whatsoever. And in these first two games on this road trip, on a must-win road trip, they just clearly don't want to play.
Played at the side of the goal in front of the net. Holy mackerel! Matthews with the hat trick. But Larson, Nylander wins it. William Nylander scores! Game over. Bless you, boys. What a game. Tavares coming out, sends it in a goal. They score! They score! The Leafs have won it. They're going to the second round.
Welcome back to another episode of the Six on Ice podcast. I am one half congested Anthony Carbone, and joining as well, of course, is Anthony William, and just getting over being sick, but, you know, we still got to record this podcast. We still got to get it going. The Leafs are on a bit of a streak. We're heading into the Olympic break. A couple games we got to talk about for sure. Just the entire team, like, is there still hope? We're going to discuss that, like, a bunch of talk of retool, rebuild, go all in. We're going to give our opinions and break it down, but first we got to say what's up to Anthony. How you doing?
Doing okay. Not congested at all on this end.
Oh my goodness. But now it is time that we talk about this team once again, and man, just a roller coaster of emotions that this team gives to their fans. I mean, considering what we said this last week after while we were recording, that this road trip would determine how the rest of the season would go. Now, for me, I think from what I've seen, it's going to be after the Olympics that determines what happens. I mean, is there anything you want to say before we dive into it? I mean, just the fact that it's just up and down this season.
It's such a roller coaster of emotions. They were 0-4-2 before this road trip, and they had a crappy game against the Seattle Kraken. They had a horrible loss. They had a horrible win the next game, and then, as the Leafs do so well, they blow out Calgary and gave some hope, and then they show up against Edmonton last night. Played a really good game against a good team, and now are we going to retool? Are we going to go all in? It's up in the air at this point. I think all of Leafs Nation, and even it seemed to be hinted at that the Leafs were going to retool. They were going to sell high, and get some players back for a run for next year. But now I'm not so sure what MLC and Brad Treliving are going to do.
So yeah, we'll dive into it right away. I mean, we'll start off. We'll start with the Seattle game. I mean, they just got completely outplayed. Shane Wright had a great game, after many talks of him not, doing anything and being a great player for Seattle. He comes in a game again. Obviously, a lot of Canadian players want to do well against the Leafs, and he certainly did. They didn't look great in that game. Stolarz, again, is I think it was his second game back from his injury. Also didn't look great in that game. And they just, the defense was terrible, of course, and they couldn't push any offense against, to me, a team that's mid in the Seattle Kraken, that have been mid since coming into the league. I mean, what did you think of that game, considering that, an opponent the Leafs should comfortably compete with, got outclassed and outperformed?
I think when we were coming into this game, we were expecting, as you said, okay, this road trip is going to really determine what the Leafs do, and you would have expected a showing against a team that, I think, are they in a playoff? Is the Kraken in the? I think they are in a playoff spot, but I think it's still kind of very, very tight.
I could double check that while you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right though. It's a game that they absolutely have to win to keep the playoff hopes alive, and they just did not show up. Couldn't make passes. As you said, Stolarz looked really shaky in his second game back. And I don't know. I still think, and we're going to get into the other games, but I still think, despite what we've seen, we should probably still retool. But
Yeah, the Kraken are in the second wildcard position in the Western Conference with LA 1 point behind them. So they're in a bit of a race for the wildcard spots. I mean, they could compete for the division, but still, on paper, you'd think the Leafs would have a better team. And I mean, all year, this like it's reminding me of like the Rangers last year, where like they're a good team, they're just not performing to like what they are on paper. But I mean that like losing after, especially after having such a terrible a home stretch, losing every single game and only getting 1 point in overtime to the Detroit Red Wings, you would think going on the road it would benefit the team. And obviously, first game, like you come out and shit the bed like that badly against Seattle. You obviously you got the rebuild, retool talks continuing to grow, and I mean it's just not a great look for the Leafs.
And it didn't get much better in the next game, to be completely honest.
Exactly. So if we want to move on, I mean, obviously, you still got to finish this road trip, and now you're heading back to Canada. You're starting out in BC against the last place, bottom of the barrel Vancouver Canucks, who announced that Thatcher Demko was going to be out the rest of the year due to surgery. That guy's made out of glass. Never seen that guy healthy in like ever, it seems. And yeah, another terrible showing, but I mean, they ended up getting the win. No power plays. I want to just emphasize on that. No power plays in that game for the Maple Leafs. It was just a very it looked like two bad teams like in the bottom of the standings competing, to see who's worse. And ultimately, I guess it was Vancouver in the end. I mean, the Canucks had a lead, could have had a 2-goal lead, but had a goal called back, and then goals from Nick Waugh, from Nick Robertson, and I forget who scored the second one, but a lot of passes through the neutral zone were not being able to be made from both sides. And then obviously in overtime, somehow it's overtime with the amount of chances each team had. Matthews had a breakaway, or sorry, a penalty shot after getting tripped. He misses, and then ultimately the Leafs decimate the Canucks in the shootout with Nylander and Matthews scoring 2 goals against Torlopilo, I believe is his name, the third stringer on Vancouver, and the Leafs get in, I don't know, would you call it an undeserving win considering both teams were that bad against the last place Vancouver Canucks. I mean, what a
I,
shit show of a game.
it was, as you're describing it, as so many qualifiers, last place team, third stringer in net. I'm really surprised that they put in such a piss poor effort. Again, you wanna make the playoffs, you need to beat these teams that are not very good. And Vancouver Canucks this year are not good, and they just barely get by. Yay, we feel good. They got a point. Cool. Or sorry, they got the second point. But does it instill much confidence at the end of the day? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, wow, like I'm sure like after that game, like Berube was like definitely saying something in the locker room. I mean, if you're the Maple Leafs and you want a response from all the noise and everything, surely you would go into Rogers Arena, which I didn't even know this. They haven't won a game in the Vancouver's barn since 2019. It's been
Really?
it's or I think it's
Wow.
been that long, but it's been a while since they've won in Vancouver. Like, and man, like you come out and barely scrape the win against a lottery team. Like, I know people are saying the Leafs are gonna rebuild, but there's no way they steal the first lottery pick over that Vancouver Canucks team. They are god awful, and for them to scrape the win out, I don't know. To me, that's very disappointing. And the fact that they got the win, sure, that's great, but I don't know. They definitely had to carry that into the next 2 games, especially playing harder teams. Calgary, whatever. But then the Oilers, obviously, you have to like play better than how you did against Vancouver, which we will talk about in the next couple segments. But I mean, what are your final thoughts on that game? And like, was that a game that told you like this team is just not good, or
Yeah.
like they need to retool?
Yeah. I think the fan base collectively was, after that game, they were like, okay, something needs to be done. We just don't have it this year. And to the Leafs, like in defense of the Leafs, they've had a lot of injuries this year. I know you're supposed to push through injuries and all that, and I have some more thoughts on that we'll get to later on. But at the end of the day, it's not the the season. You're just not good this year for a variety of reasons. And you mentioned Craig Berube. Is he telling them to make incomplete passes? Is he telling them not to dump and not chase? Like, I don't understand. This team does not want to play Berube hockey whatsoever. And in these first two games on this road trip, on a must-win road trip, they just clearly don't want to play.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, look at Berube. They're starting to call him Wolverine the way he's healing, with like looking. He's got his stitches out. He's got his black eyes are gone. That guy looked like he went through hell. And I mean, the team right now is fighting for playoffs, but it's just been a rough season for Craig Berube. And I mean, I hope he doesn't lose his job. Like, I mean, he's been through it. And if I'm him, I don't know if I would have the mental capacity to keep sending and relaying the same message without these guys not being able to comprehend and put out the message I'm sending if I'm Berube.
I wish the team would play as hard as as his injuries suggest. Like, and they just don't. It's a recurring theme. But
Exactly. There's nothing you can do. But they carried that momentum from that win and then brought it over into the game against Calgary. And the game against Calgary, they looked great. They actually looked good. Projected starter was Joseph Wall, a very, pretty obvious, right? After I think Stolarz played in Vancouver. You'd had to throw Wall in net here. He looked great. Right off the hop, William Nylander comes in and buries a goal, 30-something seconds in. And then from then on, the Leafs just took over that game. Calgary didn't really stand a chance. Obviously, Calgary's not the greatest team in the league right now. They're definitely competing for the first overall pick, but that's a game where the Leafs have to win, in convincing fashion, and they did. Sure, the score was only 4-2, but it was a great performance from Toronto, and that was something that the Leafs needed, especially considering that they were going to be playing Edmonton the next night, and you need points. Points are very valuable because obviously, from what Matthew said last week, they're not even focused on the management side of a rebuild or retool. They're just focused on winning hockey games. And for them to come out and beat Calgary in the way they did, again with no power plays, was, very impressive. So what were your thoughts on that game?
How they played in Calgary is how I would like them to play every season, every game of the season. I know teams are going to have bad games, they're going to have good games, but they clearly play with more effort. And this team seems to go ebb and flows. They usually take the first couple of periods off, and then they show up in the last 5 minutes of the third to make it interesting. And sometimes they win, and sometimes they lose. This game, they generally play the full 60 minutes. It's nice to see. It's oh wow, this team can actually play hockey. Who would have thought it? And William Nylander just absolutely has been on a tear since he's come back from his 14-game injury.
Yeah, he's looked great. I mean, he's obviously William Nylander, born in Calgary. We know that. Obviously, he loves to score in Calgary. He had a great game. Joseph Wall stood on his head as well. The team just looked better. They took whatever happened in Vancouver and they reshaped their game, and they looked great against, obviously, not a great Calgary team, but that's what you're supposed to do to those teams. You're supposed to win those games, and you're supposed to dominate the way they dominated, and that's what they did. So that's a great sign, obviously, for the team, especially, back-to-back wins, you're feeling good, and now you're coming in Tuesday, the last game before the break, to take on a rested Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Edmonton Oilers crew. And then, so we go into that game there. Obviously, after getting the back-to-back wins, you want to get the third and go to break happy, right? They come in, very tight first period, 0-0 after the first. And then in the second period, things started to open up with Matias Maccelli, a guy who a lot of Leafs fans are sick of already and want out of Toronto, comes in and has a 2-goal game. Very big, especially depth-wise and, for himself, because maybe now he brings some value if the Leafs were to start trading some players. A lot of those bottom 6, middle 6 guys starting to add value. If we've heard Bobby McMahon's name go out there. We've heard Max Domi's name go out there, Nick Waugh, teams are calling on those players. And, for Maccelli to start getting some points and racking up some points, maybe that adds value if they were to trade him. Obviously, maybe the team is not going to go into a retool. We don't know yet. I mean, if they're going to keep winning games, maybe they just go for it. But Anyways, getting off track here. They yeah, Michelli 2 goals. I mean, Nyes as well. After the Oilers tied it, just a quick bang bang goal, like 7 or 9 seconds later. And the Leafs end up beating Edmonton 5-2. No Tristan Jarry for Edmonton. Anthony Stolarz looked good in like the first game he's looked good since coming back from his injury. Shutting down McDavid with no points. I would say it was probably their best performance in at least a month.
Weeks, months,
At
yeah.
least at least a month.
No, in Stolarz in particular, he was really aggressive in his crease. He was challenging shooters. He looked much more confident, much more of the Stolarz of last year that led the league in save percentage. Nylander was still like dominant, both offensively and defensively. And even the penalty kill, they had like a glorious chance on the 2-on-1, and Lawton missed the net. But overall, it was a really good game. And to your point, T.S. Michelli has been a scratch for a large stretches of the season. You're right. We see a lot of criticism from not only Craig Berube but also the fan base, and upping his trade value perhaps. But it's nice to see him actually produce, because we all know he can. Where this is kind of the Matthias Michelli we were expecting when we got him in the offseason.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was expecting Michelli to at least get a lot of points, get a lot of assists, show his playmaking ability. And early on in the year, it looked like a bit of a, shitty signing. And then all of a sudden in this game, he comes in and quiets all the haters and scores 2 goals. Sure, if you can do that consistently, yeah, great. But, one game is not going to really cut it, especially with the season they've had all year. But maybe that's the start to a little point streak from Michelli, maybe for the rest of the year. As for the rest of the game, I mean, shutting down arguably the best player in the league, is hard to come by. And McDavid was pointless in this game. He had no point, obviously no goals or assists. Very rare that McDavid doesn't get a point in a game. And for the Maple Leafs in the state that they're in to do that, impressed the hell out of me. I mean, Draisaitl didn't look as threatening as he normally does. The Matthews line really had that shut down. And just the team looked great. They looks like night and day half the time, like where the team just looks unrecognizable, and a team that we never anticipated we'd see, to then this team that looks like they could compete with anybody in the league. Like how do they do this to us? And do they do it on purpose? What is the thought process, through every game?
It's so frustrating. So 1 minute they're like bottom feeder team. Okay, cool. Set our expectations, and they have a very good performance against the Edmonton Oilers. And they're like, oh wait, they can actually play against really good teams. And it's I don't know. I really don't understand. It's like, is it that they don't care? Is it this that it's like legwork and effort to put in shift after shift, game after game? I don't understand. And as a coach, like how do you coach that? If you're Craig Berube, how do you plan? You just it's almost like Yahtzee. You're just like hoping for the best here. Like I don't understand.
Yeah, it's just, to me, like to be a coach, to be a captain, to be a GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs has to be one of the hardest jobs you could ever put yourself in, because with the history, with everything about the Leafs, every one of the most well recognized franchises of Original Six, it's hard to come by, right? It's hard to, it's a hard job to get in and lead. And man, Craig Berube has not had it easy. Last year, the team looked great in the regular season. Obviously, had tough fought series against Florida, but this year, man, I feel terrible for him. I feel terrible for him. And if you ask me, I think the Leafs' downfalls of this season were not on Craig Berube. I said it from the beginning of the year, the struggles were on the players themselves. I think the actual players just either gave up on their coach for a bit, maybe just lacked confidence, they were scared to play. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't think Craig Berube is a bad coach. Maybe he wasn't the best option to grab at the when they needed a coach right off the hop, but I certainly like Berube's style of play. I mean, it worked last year, right? And now, sure, they're in a bit of a heater. They're also in talks of a retool, but I think Berube, is a great coach for them.
I think the criticism of Sheldon Keefe was great regular season. The game just does not translate to the playoffs. Craig Berube's case, the game translated very well to the playoffs, beat the Ottawa Senators. And yeah, caveat, I guess, Ottawa Senators were a very inexperienced team and it showed for the first 3 games and they kind of found their footing and made it a little bit interesting. But we could see that it translated much, much better to the playoffs. And even in the regular season when they were playing like tough games against good opponents, unlike previous iterations where we'd see them not put in the effort, like we've seen this year, beginning of the year, they would actually show up last year and be able to hold on to leads, be able to win close games, be able to play dump and chase hockey. And this year, they just don't seem to want to play that way. They couldn't be bothered to play how they played last year.
Yeah,
And that's not on the fault of, in Craig Berube's defense, it's not his fault that the players don't want to play. But then you can make the argument, I guess, oh, the coach is supposed to motivate players, but how do you motivate talent when talent doesn't want to put in the work?
exactly. And that's what's hard for Berube. I want to ask you a question. The fact that the Leafs now have won 3 in a row, are only 5 points behind Boston as of right now. I mean, the Bruins play tonight against Florida, so we'll see. They currently hold the second wildcard spot. Is there still hope? Do you think the Toronto Maple Leafs will make the playoffs? I'm going to keep asking you every episode because every week, the answer could change. So I'm going to ask you, is there still hope? And if not, should they retool? What do you think? Because the very leafy thing to do is to make playoffs.
It is, but it's also very leafy to just sell for 1 year for veteran rentals and then just miss the playoffs by a point or two. So the undying Leaf optimist in me, there's always hope. Do I hope they make the playoffs more than them missing it right now? Yeah, that's only because I don't want to give Boston a very high draft pick. I do think, though, retooling is probably the way to go. And I think for me, that's the preferred option. I'm kind of on the fence. One day I'm like, yeah, make a push for the playoffs. On the other hand, tool. I think right now I would rather see them move out some players and bring in players who can change the face of this team.
So your brain's telling you that they should retool. Like, but do you think they're gonna make it? Like, genuinely, like in your heart, do you have a feeling that they make playoffs?
No, I don't. I just can't see them leapfrogging all these teams. I can't. Like what they play, they won 3 in a row. One of the first win was they barely won against a bottom feeder Vancouver Canucks team. They win a game against a bottom feeder Calgary Flames our team, and then they put in a good effort and beat a very good Edmonton Oilers team. Is that enough? That doesn't absolve the whole season that we've seen. Outside of those 2 or 3 weeks between New Year's and the start of this year, they looked okay. There, I had a lot of hope, and they actually held the playoff spot for, I think, 2 days. But now I just can't see them clawing back the deficit that they put themselves into.
Well, I mean, listen, at the end of the day,
How about you? How about you? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll say this. I think what would benefit them, and I'm going to write a piece on this coming up, would be a quick retool. The Washington retool that they did had them win the President's Trophy the next year. They got hockey players and hockey trades and great signings that, for great team-friendly deals that, helped the team do well in the regular season. Obviously, it was the best regular season team at that point. Or I don't know if I don't think they won the President's Trophy. They were like second. They were close to Winnipeg. But they did well, obviously. Look at Boston. They did another retool as well. Missed the playoffs, were last in the division last year. And now they look like they're going to make playoffs this year. Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see. But at the end of the day, if they go on a bit of a streak and there's a chance they can make it, they're only 5 points out. Not every team can stay consistent. Like, there's no way Boston, Buffalo, Montreal, Detroit can all keep winning at the same time. Eventually, one of those teams has to cool off. And for me, I think the outlier here is Boston. I think, or Buffalo. To me, those are the teams that could fall out of that spot. Because are Buffalo really that, are they that good? Are they just going on a bit of a streak? They fire their GM and all of a sudden they're winning all these games. Maybe Maybe they're putting on a facade. I don't know. But for Toronto, as long as they can get into the playoffs, maybe they'll do some damage. If they're going to get in, I'm just, you know what? For content's sake, I say they have a chance and they will get back into the playoffs because who loves content?
Very bold, but I just can't see it. And even if they somehow make the playoffs, are they really going to do well? That's the other thing. It's like it's climbing Mount Everest to make the playoffs, but once you're there, you're going up against Detroit, Tampa
No,
Bay.
I think they're, I think to me it's Carolina or Tampa, depending if they get wild card 1 or 2. Tampa are running away with that first spot. I think 4 points up on Detroit. They don't look like they're going to lose anytime soon. And then the Hurricanes, obviously, they look like they're going to run away with the Metro spot. You're going to get two juggernauts, but I mean, if you're not if people aren't expecting you to do well, like the Leafs are meant for playoff hockey, like they're built for playoff hockey. Get in, and maybe you'll do well. Maybe they could shock some teams because it's not like they were much different from last year. Maybe they could do something in the first round and shock Tampa Bay or shock Carolina in the first round. You never know.
To your point, they do have, I would say, a better bottom six. I would say that this bottom six is probably the best we've seen it in the Matthews era. You have Lawton, you have Waugh, you have Robinson has been performing well. Allen, when he's been in the lineup, and looked well with Waugh and Robinson on that third line. And Lawton have that connection on the fourth line. It seems to be not only that they can score, but they can actually like shut down the opposing top lines. And this has been lacking in previous playoffs performances, as we are well aware as Leaf fans. So who knows? It's like the old thing, right? It's make it, and anything can happen. So we'll wait and see.
We will wait and see, indeed. But I mean, we kind of really talked about like if they should retool or should they replace Berube. I mean, we can kind of get into that. Like, obviously, like we both agreed that maybe the smart thing to do is a retool right now. I mean, obviously selling some of your assets. I mean, Bobby McMahon's a guy who could bring in a first round pick, maybe fetch you a first round pick. And I didn't know this. I thought he was younger. He's like 29 years old. I had no idea. I thought this guy was like 25. Like he's been in the Marlies for quite a bit. And
And
I
the
didn't know this guy's
ECHL,
pushing 30. What's that?
and sorry, and the ECHL. Like it's really insane his career path.
Yeah, and I didn't expect him to be like this old and then like pushing 30. So I'm wondering if he's playing so well and maybe you can retain and get some assets. I think he's a guy you can trade. You don't want to trade a lot of your young guys, right? Like your Robertson, maybe he can develop into something because he's got time to grow. Obviously, you don't want to trade Nyes. You don't want to trade Cowan. Like his name right there is something I would consider trading right there. Like we said, the smart thing to do is a retool. But as for they should replace Berube, no. I think Berube should stick with the Leafs and remain as the Leafs head coach. The smart thing to do, like I said, is to have a Washington type retool or a Boston type retool. See what you can do at the deadline. Sell whatever you can at the deadline. Maybe like Domi, McMahon, Carlo, whatever. Get rid of some of those guys that don't like have kind of shitty deals. Maybe some retain some salary, whatever you got to do to get rid of some players. Grab those assets, go into the offseason, into the NHL free agency, sign some good players, and, go for it next year.
On Craig Berube, though, and I wrote a recent article about this, it's a bit bittersweet in a way. As we discussed, the players seemingly have quit. I mean, outside of the Flames and Oilers games, but they largely, by and large, seem to have quit on Craig Berube. But if you retool, you bring in faster, younger players that can make the Leafs a little more quicker. Is he the right coach? When you look at how he's utilized Austin Matthews spends 37% in the offense or in the defensive zone this year, 36% last year. And is that the best utilization of your franchise goal scorer, of the man who scored 69 goals 2 years ago? I don't know. If you're out to win hockey games, why don't you utilize your players a bit better? I feel Berube is trying to force the 2019 Stanley Cup winning St. Louis Blues onto the Leafs, and they're just not that team. Matthews is not a Ryan O'Reilly. We don't have a Petri on the back end. It's just not the same team. And I think he's just really trying to, this is what he did. This is how he won. So who are you all to question my worth? And it's not working. And for reference, I guess, sorry, correction. Matthews has only played 37% of his starts in the offensive zone. Nathan McKinnon, 44%. Connor David, 44%. It's just, why are we not, again, utilizing our stars better?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But at the same time, I think Matthews is better defensively than both McDavid and McKinnon. I think he can play the defensive end of the game better than both McDavid and McKinnon. I think for Matthews, maybe he doesn't have to always be the goal scoring threat. That's why they've got like Nylander, they've got Nyes. Matthews as a captain and this as a the number one center, you got to be able to play both sides of the ice, and he can do that really well. So I understand, because obviously we know from the past years Matthews has been obviously more offensive driven, and under Berube's whole style, it's defense first. And for him to get, obviously his best player locked on defense and doing better on defense, to me is a good thing. Obviously he can amp up the offense a little bit, which we have seen glimpses in January. It's just about putting those pieces together and working them together and maybe doing both, maybe getting, like, maybe he doesn't have to get 60 goals a season. Maybe he can get 40 and, maybe have a really good plus minus and have a lot of block shots, a lot of takeaways, being really great in the defensive zone. I feel like that's also very valuable, to Matthews' game, is his defensive ability.
But do you pay Austin Matthews $13.5 million to block shots, or do you pay him to score 70 goals?
I pay for versatility. If he can do both, of course, that's amazing. But at the same time, it's hard. Obviously, it's very hard to score 60-something goals every season consistently. You're not going to have that. I mean, McKinnon doesn't do it all the time. McDavid doesn't do it all the time. Stamkos didn't do it all the time. It's very hard to do. So for Matt, it's all about just refining. If Matthews can refine his game and utilize both ends of the ice, the way he plays defensively and the way he can score, yeah, I think his contract's worth it. That's the thing. A lot of big end, high scoring forwards can't play the other side of the game. Arguably the most important side of the game, keeping pucks at our net, winning battles in the corners, winning faceoffs. I think for Matthews, he's got a great defensive game, and if he can put that offense together with that defense, look out, man. He's going to be a huge threat.
Yeah, I see your point, but for me, I guess we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens if they even decide to retool, if they decide to go for it. If you decide to go for it, I think you need to put him in a more offensive role. Sure, maybe change come playoffs time when the games are tighter, but we need him to score and keep on scoring as he has been to win us games, to even get to the dance here.
If they can get some power plays, that'd be great. I mean, especially if they're not having no power play games against like teams like Vancouver and Calgary, I feel like he could have stat padded there. But yeah, obviously, like you said, he needs to score a bit more.
They did not receive a power play. Sorry, their last up until last night, their last power play was like 4:37 into the third period against the Kraken last Thursday. When you out of all the time, that's like, and they got their first power play, I think it was like halfway through the third period. Two of them is actually a 5-on-3, which is really rare. At least don't get those. Anyways, you do the math, it's over 3 hours of game time. They did not receive a single power play.
Yeah.
3 hours.
To me, that's nuts. That's just that's way too much. It's like, wow. It's just, I don't know. They're not drawing enough penalties. Maybe the calls are not being called their way. I don't know, but it's not a good thing.
But when you look at the power play opportunities, even during those high octane and puck possession Sheldon Keefe teams, they're always in the bottom third of the league for power play opportunities. I think their highest is like 17th or 18th. It's like, come on, like, what are we doing here? Why doesn't MLSE call this out? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Obviously, after the Olympic break, we're gonna see what happens, and we'll go from there. But for now, it's all about the waiting game. They now finally have the break. A couple things we want to talk about. Let's see. Do you want to talk about the Olympics first? Do you want to talk about MLSE first?
I mean, we kind of talked about MLSE last episode. We can just go to the finish.
Let's go right to the Olympics. Let's finish off on the Olympics. I mean, I am very, very excited for the Olympics. I mean, Oh, we got best on best once again, basically. Team Canada, Team USA. Oh, we are here for this. This is something us hockey fans are waiting. I've been waiting for a big tournament with every single person. Like Czechia is going to be in it. Like we're going to see like a bunch of those guys, playing for the Olympics. But we got 3 Leafs represented in this tournament. Obviously, Austin Matthews, William Nylander will definitely be playing, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson will be playing for Team Sweden. Obviously, Matthews for USA. I mean, it's a big tournament, right? I mean, luckily the Leafs only have like 3 players playing in this thing, because coming out of it, you may not have as many injuries. I mean, look at who's playing. What are your thoughts on the Olympics for like these Leafs?
I think everybody's excited, obviously. We saw it in the Four Nations, how the players were so happy, so excited to represent their country in the international competition. The last time the NHL players were at the Olympics was Sochi in 2014. It's over a decade ago. And you can see that these players really care. It's an honor, essentially. And for Team USA, I'm kind of interested in some of the roster decisions. Jason Robertson, they snubbed him for the Four Nations. They snubbed him again for the Olympics. At the time of selection, he was the leading American scorer with, I think, 46 points in 41 games, 48 points in 41 games. You leave him off the roster. Okay. Cole Caulfield, he's currently 6th in scoring. He's tied for 3rd in scoring. And you leave him off the roster. I mean, I think with how the rink is, it's different from an NHL rink, because there's going to be less space. So they're probably adjusting for that, based on how the last, based on how the Four Nations went when it was Canada and US. It was very tight, hard contact kind of hockey. So I'm really interested how this is going to shape up. I'm kind of surprised they left Jason Robertson off the roster. Maybe they feel that they had his skill sets already on there, but it's going to be a really interesting tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great tournament. I love Canada. I guess I'll talk about some of the, like, obviously Canada and USA. Like Canada, I love their team. Obviously, I'm Canadian from Toronto. Love Team Canada, love their team, love their offense, love their defense. One question for me is obviously in net. Who is going to be the guy that, holds down the fort in the crease? You could go with Binnington, who did have a great Four Nations, but hasn't looked great in the regular season for a couple years. Logan Thompson, we've heard he is injured, could be injured right now, but looks like he will be playing in the Olympics, so we'll see how his health does there. I think for me, I would put Logan Thompson to start. He's obviously should be the number 1 guy for Canada, but man, think about a power play of McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, Celebrini, and Makar. Like, how do you even stop that? Like, you got to put like titanium in front of the net.
That's like some NHL 2026 fantasy roster creation right there. Yeah, we are really blessed to have such a gifted team, and they left Connor Bedard off the roster as well. So that's kind of like controversial, perhaps. But I think he was injured at the time, and I wasn't sure if he was going to be back in time. But the future is going to be Celebrini, Bedard, and you still have McDavid, you still have Makar, you still have Nathan McKinnon for a number of years to go. So it's just going to be so fascinating to watch. During the Four Nations, it was like some of the best hockey I've ever seen. That goes back to like the other Olympics, like 2002 Salt Lake City, and a bunch of other Olympic tournaments that I saw. I was just like, wow. So I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting tournament, but especially to see Canada. Team USA, I have a couple concerns with Team USA and Bill Guerin's decision making. One, you already brought it up, Jason Robertson being left off the team. He's leading American scorer in the league right now. Why isn't he on the team? Cole Caulfield, he has the most goals as an American, tied for 3rd in the league behind only McDavid and McKinnon, which is very impressive right now. So why isn't he on the team? But you know who's on the team? You got JT Miller on the team. You got Vinny Trocheck on the team. Guys like that are on Team USA. I mean, JT Miller, arguably a locker room cancer and destroy the Vancouver Canucks culture-wise, is now on the Rangers, who are shit, are terrible. They're not a great team. Missed playoffs last year, and obviously now Panarin's gone, as the news broke today. Oh man, like the forward group, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. I mean, there's no like real threat. Now Jack Hughes might be missing some time, so he might not even play. Like, I don't know, man. Like the US they really screwed up their forward selection. I mean, J-Rob and Caulfield should have been on Team USA. I understand like maybe like leadership for JT Miller and his locker room presence is important, but there's definitely a lot better choices than having JT Miller on the team for leadership wise, if that's what you're concerned with. Their defense, they look solid. I mean, as usual, they've got McAvoy, they've got Slavin, Faber, Hughes, like the team, like solid deep pairs. And obviously the goaltending is going to be the challenge for a lot of teams. Looks like it'll be Connor Hellebuck, but if he's not playing great, no problem. They got Jake Odger. And if he's not playing great, no problem. They got Jeremy Swayman. So they've got great goaltending as well.
Insane.
Exactly. If only Canada could produce goalies like that. But yeah, it's to me it's probably going to be US and Canada in the final. I would love to see it. For me, obviously I got to give the edge to Canada, right? You have to, especially with that offense. It's very hard to compete with the likes of McDavid, McKinnon, and Crosby, potentially all on the same line. You never know what can happen with that. But I mean, what are your thoughts? I have one question to ask you after, but what are your thoughts on these two rosters?
I'm hesitant to say the US isn't going to perform. That's a little superstitious, I guess, but we kind of saw last year. It was like the Kachuk brothers were wrecking havoc, and they're going to be annoying, no doubt. But it was a big thing with like, oh, Matthews and Hughes, they want to play together, and they looked not the best together at Four Nations. And I think on their projected lines, they're going to be Matthews is going to be on the second line, Hughes is going to be on the third line. But these are just early projections, and probably going to change. But I share your concerns about the U.S. roster. Like the forward group seems their defense is solid, and their goaltending is just otherworldly. But I want Canada to win, and they have a lot of talent on that roster, and it's a deep roster on Canada's side, and I think it's going to be a good tournament.
I've got one final question to ask you to bring
Sure.
it back to the Leafs. Is Austin Matthews going to be the captain of Team USA?
I was researching this last night because I was curious, and nothing has been named. He was the captain on Four Nations, but kind of like Eichel as the captain, to be honest. But I don't know. It's for me. I think has Crosby been named the captain, or is he expected to be the captain? Like
I guarantee it's a guarantee. It's a guarantee. As long as he's
and,
playing, he's probably going to be the captain.
and it makes sense. He's like 38 years old, but he's representing Canada at the Olympics. Did a good job leading them to the victory of the Four Nations. Like no brainer. Sure, pick McDavid. Sure, pick Nathan McKinnon. Like anybody. But for the U.S., like this year that Matthews has been having, he's been hot in recent weeks, but I don't know. I don't think it's as solid of an answer.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that Matthews was the captain at the Four Nations, and all of a sudden now there's talks of him like not being the captain this year. I don't know who you would name captain though. I mean, I do like your idea of Eichel, but like, what if they end up giving it to JT Miller and like we're all just like shaking our heads. Like they could do that. I mean, considering if they're picking him on the team for his leadership, maybe they just give him the captaincy.
Is
So
that what
who
they said?
knows?
Is that what they said? They picked Miller for his leadership, or he brings leadership qualities to the locker room?
I remember he brought, I forget what Bill Guerin said. He did it on, I think, 32 Thoughts, but I think he said something the likes of like I guess something of his, like who he is, JT Miller, right? Like, I guess that's why he picked it over J. Robin Caulfield. Cause like, obviously talent wise, those two clear JT Miller, but I guess there's something that Bill Guerin decided was more important. And maybe it was his leadership. Maybe it was his locker room ability. I don't know. But tough to say. Tough call. I think it was a dumb call. At the
I
end of the day, they're going to pay the price for it when Canada beats them.
feel the moment as a general manager, you have to go on a podcast to defend your choices. You already made the bad ones, to be honest.
Bill Guerin, if you want to come on and explain yourself, you're more than welcome to. The invite is open.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I've got nothing else to add. Is there anything you wanted to say before we sign off for
I
the
do.
day?
I do. I have one question. How do you
Yeah,
feel about Sam Bennett replacing Anthony Cirelli?
it's a great question, and I think it was the best option on the table. Obviously, Bennett brings the grit aspect. He could definitely handle. I mean, he is buddies with Matthew Tkachuk, but maybe he can handle Brady or something like that. But obviously, the Canada need a little bit of like that firepower, like on like hitting and just being a pest, being a rat. Obviously, they have Marchand, but I think that was a great idea to bring in Sam Bennett for that reason right there. You could argue she could have been Mark Scheifele because of the season or how he's playing and the season he's been having, but I think it was a great selection for them to take Bennett over anyone else.
I do agree. I mean, Bennett does probably lead Team Canada in headshots per 60 minutes, but you're right. He brings that level of pesting and aggressiveness, and he played pretty well in the Four Nations. I thought, anyways. As much as the inner Leaf fan in me is just like wants to strangle him for what he did to Stollers last year, but I think it was the right call as well.
Yeah, I agree. So that's gonna wrap up this episode of the Six on Ice podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, and tell your friends. I mean, the Leafs were off. Like they're done. They're not playing. I don't know if we will be back next week to talk about the Olympics. I guess we'll see, depending on what we discuss throughout the next couple days. But yeah, I mean, very excited for the Olympics. So go tune into that. Obviously, go Canada, and then obviously for Leafs fans, positive. They're on 3-game win streak. Could make playoffs. They still have a chance, but who knows? Time will only tell. And for now, get that out of your head. Enjoy some best on best hockey. Enjoy some Olympic hockey, and we will see you guys on the next podcast. Take care and peace.